They'll take all this information, which videos you've liked, how your thumb rests on your screen, what Wi-Fi network you're connected to, what other phones are connected on that Wi-Fi network, all the usual stuff about cross-app tracking and demographic information that they can. They turn that into a numerical representation and embedding of who you are as a person. Each video, as it's uploaded, undergoes a computer vision algorithm and natural language processing algorithm. That gets turned into a numerical representation of what the video is about. And then these numerical representations get paired with each other. And that's how they know to send certain videos to certain users.
Right, that social media algorithms use language to create new identities for users, which can then be commoditized by the platforms. So why do social media platforms have the financial incentive in creating new identities?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So they run on natural human behaviors. We naturally want to pay attention to things, and they naturally create the incentive structures for influencers to try to grab your attention because they reward retention rate, how long viewers watch the video. So attention is just an example there of what they're rewarding, and I think our language is revolving around what gets attention. Humans also have a natural tendency to want to belong to groups. That's why people on the early internet sought out other people with similar interests.
Very first.
And algorithms really play into that by making you feel like you're part of a group. They'll push you further into the K-pop community, and you'll start using words like Delulu, and they have so many like Korean loan words in that community. I'm not in this filter bubble at all. We're all separated into different consumptive kind of niches. What's really interesting here is that these are now demographics. In the past, a demographic statistic could be something like race, age, gender. Now it's whether you're pastel goth or whether you're cottagecore, whether you're a K-pop fan. These are all now labels that are used to represent you. Because what the algorithm is doing is they build a very nuanced picture of who you are. This is never actually who you are. It's a shadow representation using limited information, but it's fairly good. And they'll take all this information, which videos you've liked, how your thumb rests on your screen, what Wi-Fi network you're connected to, what other phones are connected on that Wi-Fi network, all the usual stuff about cross-app tracking and demographic information that they can. They turn that into a numerical representation and embedding of who you are as a person. Each video, as it's uploaded, undergoes a computer vision algorithm and natural language processing algorithm. That gets turned into a numerical representation of what the video is about. And then these numerical representations get paired with each other. And that's how they know to send certain videos to certain users. These algorithms are predictive. They try to guess which videos are going to get the most attention by users. Because again, the whole logic is attention. How do we get people's attention so we can commodify it, so we can sell more of your data? So because in-group behavior is something that is good for getting attention. You want to feel like you're part of a group, and the algorithm is set up to reward that behavior. It creates communities. It creates micro-communities. And
right. Or it creates someone who goes across communities, right? For example, because when you're saying there's demographics, sex, age, etc., there's also demographics of people who like to watch hardware hacks, like myself, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And because everyone's individually moving, they can then group them together.
Yeah, it's predictive because you're still in this cluster of people who like hardware hacks. And it knows from other users' similar behavior that you might like this video if it contains the numerical representation of a hardware hack. But where we get into identity formation is very interesting. Because now that the algorithm incentivizes these labels to be coined, and the same way I coined the phrase boomer ellipses, creators go out of their way to either coin or popularize phrases as trend bait because they want to tap into this perceived algorithmic space. They want to find ways to communicate to that imaginary representation of what a cluster of people is. And so they find words like pastel, goth, cottagecore. There is a latent kind of desire for that word. The word is popularized by creators. Algorithm pushes it further. It becomes more of a thing. Now, as a pastel goth, in the past, let's say in the 80s, 70s, if you were a goth, that was counterculture, right? It was a broad label. You could be a lot of different things if you were a goth. Now you have to be a cyber goth or a trad goth or a retro goth or a pastel goth. And now that you're in this smaller, perhaps, category, circularly forming your identity around this, because every time you get a pastel goth video, you're like, ooh, the algorithm really knows me, forgetting that the algorithm gave you that identity. Now you circularly identify with this smaller category of what you can be, which potentially limits your true self-expression, because if you were just a broad goth, that contains way of a wider semantic range.
A myriad of multitude of goths. Yeah, no, it's interesting. Right. All groups do this. I went to a neo-Nazi rally in Germany I was covering once, and the amount of different Nazis was really interesting, and I was fascinated by had all different costumes and had different of what they did, but I was thinking, they were together, so they got to interact with each other. But now on TikTok, of course, they can sell you pastel goth clothes, by the way, so that they do see an opportunity.
Right. It's one click away on the TikTok shop, conveniently.
Sure, which is the point of kids. In case you're interested, they want to sell you shit.
It's several points. It's the selling you shit. It's also the just creating the identity to like, there's a lot of layers going on of why this works for the algorithm.
It works. Oh, it always works for the house. Just remember that. Algorithms haven't just led to the creation of new words and identities, they led to new accents. You described 3 of them in your book. You mentioned them earlier. The entertainment influencer accent, lifestyle influencer accent, and educational influencer accent. There's probably many, many more.
There's like ASMR. There's
yes.
So yeah. Right.
So explain the characteristics of these accents, how they developed, and say a sentence or 2 in each one, or ones so we can hear the differences. Let's start with the entertainment influencer. If you want to add one in, please do.
Right. Influencers always communicate for their perceived audience, for the algorithm as well. Again, there's a few layers of performativity happening here. And identify like different types of influencer accents based on this audience they're accommodating for. The entertainment influencer accent is sort of downstream of Mr. Beast, and there's this term beastification that's been going around. And there's a lot of influencers who are trying to mimic this, but it's basically just making like every word really pop. Like, I just bought this private island, I'm giving away $1 million. Like they make. But if you look at any real interview of Mr. Beast talk, he doesn't talk like that, right? And it's very intentional. It's very deliberate. Last year, an employee of Mr. Beast leaked a 36-page onboarding memo elaborating his exact strategies for going viral. He's extremely deliberate with it. He talks about retention every single page of that memo. There's a YouTube channel, Data Time, that did a great analysis on Mr. Beast's talking speed. It goes up to about 200 something words per minute, and the standard deviation narrows, showing just how Mr. Beast like homed in on this exact cadence that really, really works for his videos. He's very methodical with it. He's extremely analytical. Yeah. He's good at gaming the algorithm. Yeah. He didn't get there by coincidence. So Mr. Beast figured out this accent that really, really works. I'm talking to a different audience. I'm not talking to brain-rotted 14-year-olds. I'm talking to somewhat brain-rotted nerdy people. But I will talk really quickly. I'll stress more words to grab your attention because that's what works for my audience. It does. And you see a lot of influencers kind of also talk like that. Also, you got to keep in mind that successful strategies self-replicate. Sometimes people just start speaking a certain way because they assume that's the correct way to speak online. There's also a huge survivorship bias in what gets shown on your For You page. The videos that end up on your For You page are ones that are predisposed to go more viral. And now we get back into like what makes something culturally click.
Lifestyle influencer accent. Yeah. I know this one.
Well, this is the classic, most
stereotype. You need to do them all. Yeah.
Hey guys, welcome to this podcast. We're talking about accents. You'll notice the rising tones on that kind of like keeps the viewer hooked because it sounds like something's always coming next. Yeah, it fills dead air. They elongate their vowels. It fills dead air, and dead air is really bad, especially when they're working on an extemporaneous capacity. They need to fill that dead air, and the sort of lifestyle influencer accent has evolved kind of out of all these have evolved sort of out of previous accents. Maybe not entertainment, but like my accent is based on early founders like the Green Brothers and Vsauce and stuff like that. I don't think I was consciously imitating them, but I started out speaking slowly.
Take your cues.
There's a subconscious cue taking as well. And I was interviewing a lot of creators about how'd you end up with this accent. Some say, I did this consciously looking at retention. Other people said I did this subconsciously just looking at what other people did. And a lot of us there's some level of taking our cues from other people. There's some level of maybe we just get behaviorally conditioned by the algorithm as well. So there's a few layers of that.
Is there one that's for sports? Is there one for
what I like to compare this to is really not that different from the broadcast voice. This just in. We've always been talking like this because you're accommodating for a certain audience for a certain medium. I'm a strong believer that the medium is the message. Each new medium, and I think algorithms are that new medium, will affect how we communicate online.